Welcome to Rewired History, where history isn't just dusty dates and dull timelines. Behind the marble walls of the Vatican, amidst whispered prayers and grand rituals, lies a history as dark as it is divine. Today, we're stepping into the heart of the Catholic Church, Vatican City. While popes are seen as holy leaders guiding millions of faithful, history tells a different story for some. Popes aren't always the paragons of virtue we imagine. Power, corruption, scandal, and even murder have plagued the papacy across centuries. In this video, we're counting down the top 8 most controversial popes in Vatican history. And trust me, this isn't your Sunday school lesson. Let's dive into the most shocking chapters of papal history. Number 1. Pope Stephen VI, 896 to 897. The Corpse Trial Pope. We begin with one of the most bizarre events in church history. Pope Stephen VI is infamous for the Cadaver Synod, where he literally put a corpse on trial. Ever heard of a pope who put a dead pope on trial? In 897, Stephen ordered the exhumation of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, who had been dead for over 7 months. He dressed the rotting corpse in papal robes, propped him up on a throne, and conducted what is now called the Cadaver Synod. Stephen screamed accusations of crimes like perjury and illegal assumption of the papacy at the decaying body, had its papal blessings revoked, and even chopped off the corpse's fingers. With a deacon answering for him, Formosus was found guilty, stripped of his sacred garments, and tossed into the Tiber River. Why? Politics, of course. Formosus had crossed the wrong people. But this grotesque mock trial horrified Rome. Riots broke out, Stephen was imprisoned, and later, strangled to death in his cell. Justice? You decide. It remains one of the most macabre moments in Vatican history, proving just how far some would go for vengeance and power. Number 2. Pope Benedict IX, 1032 to 1048. The teenage pope who sold the papacy. Imagine being elected pope as a teenager, then selling the position like a used car. That's the story of Pope Benedict IX. I mean, you're giving a teenager the most powerful religious office on earth. What could go wrong? Pope Benedict IX became pope before age 20, some say even younger, and was described by historians as a demon from hell in the disguise of a priest. But what's certain is that his papacy, actually 3 papacies, was a whirlwind of chaos, corruption, and immorality. His reign was marked by scandal and violence. He was accused of hosting orgies in the Lateran Palace and selling church offices. At one point, Benedict literally sold the papacy to his godfather, Pope Gregory VI, reportedly because he wanted to get married. He later returned, seized back the papal throne, and was excommunicated for it. He was so corrupt that even his allies turned against him. Benedict IX is the only man to be pope on 3 separate occasions, and one of the few to have ever sold the office of the pope. His actions triggered a massive church reform movement and contributed to the eventual separation of church and state powers. He remains a prime example of how political ambition and moral collapse can corrupt even the holiest office in Christendom. Number 3. Pope John XII, 955 to 964. The wild child of the Vatican Pope. John XII's behavior was so scandalous it shocked even 10th century Rome. Elected pope at just 18, his rule was less about Holy Scripture and more about holy hell. John treated the papal palace more like a party house than a sacred institution. He turned the Vatican into a den of sin. He was accused of gambling, drinking, womanizing, and even toasting the devil during drunken feasts. Some said he turned the Vatican into a brothel and consecrated a boy as bishop in a stable. He reportedly invoked pagan gods during dice games and was accused of sleeping with his father's mistress. Roman officials claimed he toasted the devil and murdered at will. His enemies compiled a list of sins so outrageous that an emperor intervened, deposed him, and installed a new pope. John came back briefly but died under mysterious and possibly scandalous circumstances. How did it end? Some say he died after a stroke. Others? He was beaten to death by a jealous husband after being caught in bed with the man's wife. His disgraceful reign tarnished the papacy's image for decades and is often cited as one of the lowest points in church history. Number 4. Pope Alexander VI, 1492 to 1503. The Borgia Pope. If the name Borgia sounds familiar, thank Netflix and history's darkest corners. Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, is arguably the most infamous pope in history. His name is practically synonymous with corruption, nepotism, vice, and unrestrained hedonism. He used bribery to secure the papacy and immediately began enriching his family, the powerful Borgias. Alexander openly acknowledged his mistress and 4 children. He appointed his illegitimate children to high church positions, including his son Cesare, who was both a cardinal and a ruthless military leader and feared warlord. Alexander was known for extravagant parties, open affairs, especially with his mistress Vannozza dei Catani, and wild corruption. While he did contribute to the arts and diplomacy, his moral conduct severely damaged the church's reputation and helped spark the Protestant Reformation just years later. His papacy was marked by scandal, including rumors that the Pope used church funds to fuel orgies and power plays, such as the notorious Banquet of Chestnuts, where 50 courtesans reportedly entertained guests in the Vatican. Alexander VI is a textbook case of the dangers of dynastic politics in religious leadership, where the Vatican resembled a mafia headquarters more than a house of God. His enemies whispered of poison, assassinations, and backroom deals. While some saw him as a shrewd politician, others saw a man who sold the soul of the church for personal gain. Number 5. Pope Urban VI, 1378 to 1389. The angry tyrant who triggered a schism. The papacy of Pope Urban VI sparked one of the most significant divides in church history, the Western Schism. He was a man whose temper was as famous as his title. Pope Urban was elected amid pressure to appoint an Italian after a long line of French popes. But after being elected in 1378, his erratic behavior shocked the cardinals. Urban VI soon alienated many with his explosive temper and harsh reforms. He insulted cardinals, accused them of corruption, and even physically assaulted members of the clergy. He accused bishops of plotting against him and had some tortured and executed. He was widely feared for being insane. His cruelty was so intense that just months into his reign, a group of cardinals declared his election invalid due to intimidation and elected a rival pope, Clement VII, in Avignon. Thus began the Western Schism, a period with 2 popes, sometimes 3, each claiming to be the true head of the church and excommunicating the other. The schism lasted for nearly 40 years, causing massive confusion, division, and weakening of the church's authority. Urban VI's iron-fisted rule, lack of diplomacy, and paranoia helped tear the unity of Christendom apart. Urban's legacy? A divided church and a reign fueled by paranoia and rage. Number 6. Pope Pius XII, 1939 to 1958. The silent Pope of World War II. Pope Pius XII led the Catholic Church during one of history's darkest periods, World War II and the Holocaust. Unlike the others, Pope Pius XII wasn't scandalous for what he did, but for what he didn't do. During World War II, as Nazi horrors unfolded, the Pope remained largely silent while millions of Jews were being exterminated by Nazi Germany. Though he was aware of the atrocities, Pius chose not to issue a full public condemnation of Hitler's regime, choosing diplomacy over denunciation. Supporters claim he worked behind the scenes to save thousands of Jews through diplomatic channels and church networks. Some Jewish leaders even praised him post-war for his efforts. Documents show the Vatican did shelter some Jews and helped others escape. But the lack of open condemnation still fuels controversy today, and the debate over his legacy remains intense. His defenders call him the Pope who saved lives. His critics say he turned a blind eye when it mattered most. Was he a cautious diplomat trying to avoid Nazi retaliation, or a passive observer who failed a moral test? His canonization process has been controversial, with many urging more transparency before declaring him a saint. Pius XII's papacy poses a haunting question. What is the moral duty of spiritual leaders in the face of genocide? Number 7. Pope Leo X, 1513 to 1521. The Pope who triggered the Reformation. A member of the powerful Medici family, Pope Leo X was a patron of the arts, but also a financial disaster for the Vatican. To fund the lavish rebuilding of St. Peter's Basilica and support his extravagant lifestyle, Leo authorized the widespread sale of indulgences, promises of reduced punishment for sins in exchange for money. This practice outraged a German monk named Martin Luther, who wrote his famous 95 Theses in 1517, effectively launching the Protestant Reformation. Leo X dismissed Luther's concerns and excommunicated him, underestimating the public's anger at church corruption. His failure to address legitimate reform demands and his prioritization of luxury over spiritual integrity helped tear Europe in two religiously. While he supported artists like Raphael and Michelangelo, his reign is remembered for arrogance and catastrophic mismanagement, turning religious frustration into full-blown revolt. Number 8. Pope Francis, the modern Maverick. Finally, we arrive in the present. Pope Francis, beloved by many, questioned by traditionalists. He's tackled issues like climate change, capitalism, and LGBTQ inclusion head-on, often shaking up the Church's conservative base. He washed the feet of Muslim migrants, called for environmental justice, and even suggested that atheists can go to heaven if they live morally. His stance on divorce, same-sex civil unions, and abuse scandals has earned him both praise and backlash. Is he controversial? Certainly, but his controversy is born not of sin, but of reform, compassion, and a refusal to play it safe. From dead pope trials to modern-day revolutions, the papacy is not just a story of faith. It's a saga of power, politics, and humanity at its most complex. These 8 men, each in their own way, shaped the Vatican and the world beyond. From political corruption to moral collapse, these popes remind us that history is never black and white, even within the Vatican's walls. While many popes have lived saintly lives, these 8 left behind legacies that still stir debate and reflection. Some were villains, others reformers. Some ruled with cruelty, others with quiet controversy. But one thing is certain. The papal throne has never been a place for the faint of heart. Which pope shocked you the most? Do you think any of them were misunderstood by history? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more dark and fascinating tales from the past. This is Rewired History, signing off, where the past comes alive in all its scandal and glory.